Hey everyone, and welcome back to Four Friends in a Book podcast. My name is Chris Colston, and of course, I'm here with my friends Isaiah Tukes, Kimberly Lake, LaRhonda Reed, and once again, we are Four Friends and a Book. So check this out. If you're tuning in for the very first time, Four Friends in a Book is our monthly podcast series where we have a discussion centered around a book that we're reading together. So we meet here to discuss that book, to review it, and just to kind of catch up amongst each other, have table talk amongst friends. So we like to consider ourselves a book club, book reviewers mixed with just, friend chatter. So definitely go back, get caught up in current with Four Friends in a Book. We have great conversation, great books. Also, we have great rants by Mr. Rant Man himself, who wraps up each and every episode of Four Friends in a Book. So again, get caught up current with Four Friends in a Book podcast. All right. So look, in the month of March, we are in Women's History Month. Celebrating the women this month. And very fitting author. We are celebrating the legacy and life of Miss Octavia Butler with this book, The Parable of the Sower. It's kind of weird because she wrote this book back in 1993, but it's actually written in kind of the times that we're living in right now. Really following the journey of Lauren, who's kind of the main character in this book, in this kind of apocalyptic type time. There's a lot going on. Like the country is kind of falling, economy is bad. Covering this, 2024 to 2027 time period, and again, we're in March of 2025 now. I mean, the book starts off with a presidential election. At that time, the president coming in, he changing a whole bunch of stuff. The people are like in disarray. Like government is really shaky. People, food, water, like just economy, jobs. There's issue with race and class, and just a lot going on within this book, which is somewhat familiar if you really think about what we got going on in today's time. So
True.
Want to get you guys thoughts and opinions about this book. So let's get into it. Let's discuss it. Let's unpack The Parable of the Sower by Miss Octavia Butler for the month of March here on Four Friends in a Book. So look, I already know what it is. I said every episode, we always kick the show off with this question. What did you think about this book? And if you had to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, what would that be? And I'm going to come to Miss Kimberly Lake to kick us off with this book. Look, Women's History Month. I got to start with the women. So
Okay.
What did you think about this book? And if you had to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, what would that be?
So Octavia Butler, I was familiar with her because I had a friend a long time ago that loved reading books, and she loved Octavia Butler. So I've never read any of her books. I listened to it on Audible. Now on Audible, the narrator, like I had to speed it up because she read very slowly. So once I sped it up, I was like, okay, I'm able to listen to it. Now, for me, the book started off very slow. I was just like, okay, what's happening? I know it's, you could tell she was like writing her diary, but it was just more focused on Lauren, the main character. So there was no action. But once they started like really diving into the world and like what was happening and other characters were introduced, then it picked up for me. So I enjoyed like the middle of the book, and then towards the end of the book, it kind of slowed down for me again. And then when I researched it, it said because it's supposed to be like a trilogy, and there is like a second part to this series, but then she got really bad writer's block and died before she could finish the third part. So when I was listening to it, I was like, this, I could see it being like a Netflix series or some kind of Amazon series. I know one of her other books is on Amazon Prime, Kindred. I think they turned that into a series. So for me, it's like I did kind of enjoy it in the middle, but it was like like a really slow burn kind of book. So if I could rate it, I'd probably give it like 6.57. 6.57, kind of in that in that area. Yes, I have to do I have to do halves. So yeah. So I enjoyed the middle of the book, but the beginning, especially the beginning, and then the end, I was just like, okay, So it kind of just left it open. But I see because it has a sequel. But that's the rating I would give the book.
Okay. So 6.5, 7-ish from Miss Kimberly Lake.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're actually right. There's the a follow-on for this book, the parable of the talents, if I'm not mistaken, which takes place, I think, 30 years after this kind of the last chapter within this book.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay.
Oh, and I
But
thought it was interesting about the dates because I was driving, listening it to on Saturday, March 8th, and when she was saying the dates, like Saturday, March 8th, I was like, oh, it's actually accurate dates for 2025 and like 2026 is like the real date. So I thought that
Mm-hmm.
was interesting.
okay. All
But
right. So look
dang.
again, Women's History Month. So I gotta do it for the ladies over here. So coming to Miss LaRhonda Reed next. What did you think about this book? And if you had to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, what would that be?
I didn't like it. I just did not. I could not get into it. I was like, just sit down and just sit down for a minute. Then I was like, oh, then I was trying to walk and listen because I was on Audible. I just couldn't get into it. It just felt repetitive to me. It's like, how many scenarios can we go through with y'all being around this wall, then people getting killed, as people getting robbed? People, it was just like, okay, like and I'm not a sci-fi person either. So I feel like for someone who enjoys science fiction and that kind of thing, and I just felt like it was a Will Smith movie, like one of them.
I Am Legend or something.
Yeah, I Am Legend kind of things, but it was too it still could have caught me, but it was just so it
Mm-hmm.
was like so repetitive to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I could not get into it. The dates and the message behind it, I got. But I just could not will myself. I mean, I'm like, come on now, you can do it. I mean, I'm having to give myself a pep talk to listen. Like, come on, girl, you got to review this book. And I could not get into it at any point. It was just, I struggled. So for me, that was, and it's well written. It's just, it was not for me. So I'll give it a 5. This is probably the lowest one I've ever given anybody. But
You
I
guys
mean, RIP author. It's Octavia, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Octavia
I'm
Butler.
sorry, Octavia. I'm sorry, but I couldn't get into it.
Yeah, like Miss Butler's no longer with us, and
I
you
know.
definitely you weren't feeling her book either. So I guess
I'm sorry. I just couldn't get into it. Wasn't for me. It wasn't for me.
okay. No, I get it. I understand. So you said a 5.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, now I get it. So now I kind of go next. So yeah, this fictions aren't really my forte either, and this was kind of like that sci-fi ish type of book. And so I agree. The beginning
Mm-hmm.
is very slow. I I get what she was trying to do as far as setting the foundation and the kind of the premise of everything with laying out kind of Lauren's life and kind of giving some backstory as far as how they got into this, this situation of kind of like again being in this kind of dystopia environment where everything is kind of in turmoil, and now that they have to have this walled in community to kind of protect themselves.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was very reminiscent of like The Walking Dead or like
Mm-hmm.
Mad Max
Yeah.
or something. So like all those kind of apocalyptic type of stories where you people are trying to survive and figure out how to
Mm-hmm.
move forward. Yeah, the beginning was actually like I had to kind of go back because I feel like I was missing stuff. But to Kim's point, like once I kind of got into it, I actually enjoyed it. Like it started kind of flowing pretty well. So I was kind of digging it, just kind of hearing the journey. Again, not a huge fiction person, but I feel like it was kind of just so like Walking Dead like. And look, the Walking Dead had me in a chokehold for a while, so maybe I was making that connection, or even like the Mad Max and Thunderdome and all this stuff. So as it was progressing, and even just kind of hearing her with her like hyper empathy and just kind of the drugs of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but also, I was really just tripped out at how much. Again, this book was published in 1993,
Mm-hmm.
and there are so many similarities of things that are going on right now. Like even just she talks about like how gas powered vehicles are no longer being used, and everyone has kind of switched to EVs. And so for her to have this kind of foresight and awareness, like I was really just kind of blown away even with that, because again, the time period is from 2024 to 2027. And it's like we're in these times right now. And some of the stuff that she's talking about as far as race and classism and just economic downturn, it's like it's so relevant to today's time. So I think that sparked my curiosity as I was listening. I just listened on Audible as well, so I think that kind of sparked my curiosity. If I had to rate the book, it wasn't a 5, LaRhonda. I get it. It wasn't a 5 for me. I'm gonna give it an 8. I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to doing the follow-on story, the Parable of the Talents, which is again the follow-on to this book. It's already on my to read list, so I'm gonna check that out as well. So, Miss Octavia Butler, rest in peace. I'm sending you off well over here with a 8 from your boy Chris here for friends in the book.
Making me feel bad for giving somebody dead a 5. I'm sorry, ma'am. I just like feeling it.
Yeah, he looks like he's enjoying you.
Look, yeah, Isaiah already got that look in his eye. I'm actually
right.
He got that look in his eye.
I'm somewhat afraid, man, because I know he been doing good, and I think he's been doing well because we've kind of our last few books have, he's been kind of championing them. There's been stuff that, especially his last read we had, heavy, like that was on his list for a while. So we know he's gonna get a good rating for that. I think this might be old, Isaiah. So my brother, coming to you, man. What do you think about this book? If you had to rate it, what would that be?
So I kind of agree with everybody. Like in the beginning of this book, it actually kind of off a little slow, and then it built up just a little bit. But in the beginning, like I enjoyed hearing about the story of Lauren and her family. But what started to fall off for me was like after her brother Keith passed away, and then her dad actually left suddenly. Like it started going downhill, and I just didn't understand even part of the religion of her earth seed. I think it wasn't explained enough to me. This was one of the first books I listened to on Audible, and this was the longest 12 hours of my life. Like
you got speed it up.
It was like,
but even if you speed it up, it was still messed up.
I had to speed it up.
I'm like, come on, get to it. Like the chapters did not make sense. Like I can't take away like the writing was written well. It just like. It just didn't make sense. Nothing was clicking for me. Like it was so many characters that started to be introduced. As far as like to the end, it was a lot of killing, murderers, and I didn't know what was going. I'm like, what are they doing? Where are they going? Like they're just going from this place to this place. We walking and people eating. Somebody getting shot. They grabbing babies. I'm like, what is happening? I'm like, I thought it was gonna lead up to something like, but that was literally like the second half of the book. I'm like, nothing has happened. I'm listening, just waiting to like what's the climax? What is this story about? And, nothing even stuck out for me. Like all these characters, nobody was particularly interesting. And at the end of the book, Lauren's 18, she meets a 60-year-old, and they're gonna get married. I'm like, but that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother story. Like, what is happening here? I agree with it, but everybody except for Chris. Overall, this book was for me. It made to appeal to some people who like that dark sci-fi type of person. But if you're looking for something thoughtful, something mind stimulating, this wasn't it for me at all. Oh, I really hate to do this, but I rate this book.
Oh Lord!
Oh, I rate this a 3.
Oh Lord!
I saw that
3. That was the longest 12 hours for me.
It was a long time. And I sped mine up. I was 8 hours and it was still long. I said, God.
Yeah, once I sped it up, because for me, the narrator, like I didn't really enjoy her. Okay. So I had to speed it up. But once I sped it up, I could actually listen to it. Because at the beginning, I literally at the beginning was like, I think some novels too, like are better read.
Okay.
And I almost went to the library to get it just because I felt like I might get through it quicker and better reading it than listening to it. But I just went ahead and listened to it. But
I don't think it would have mattered for me. It just it just wasn't my cup of tea at all. No.
So was it the I guess the sci-fi aspect?
It just didn't. It didn't make sense. Yeah, that part I could have gone with that. but it just kept feeling like it was the same kind of thing. Somebody got
Over and
robbed.
over.
Somebody got this happened. Like, it's just like, okay, I mean, what's next? It just kept feeling like doom the whole
Right.
pretty much time. And it was just like, okay, you know, it wasn't no,
Right.
I mean, I understood the point behind it, but it was just, okay. He said I didn't.
I did. If it would have stayed with her family, I thought we were gonna stay with like the family dynamics of what's going on within that community.
Right.
Like, but when they start leaving and going places, I'm like, where y'all going and how did y'all get here? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. It was just, it felt a little it was a lot for me.
Somebody eating human legs. I'm like, no, this is just getting too dark for me. I'm like, no.
Desperate times.
and that's the thing. And we've seen it in some of these other, these movies where you're, and I think that's kind of the thing is like this is kind of dramatized again to the apocalyptic type of environment or scenario where normalcy has been turned upside down. So now you're having to figure out how to maneuver into these new lifestyles and ways of life. Isaiah, you brought up a good point. I actually wanted to touch on as well. So again, Lauren starts out in this book writing her story at the age of 15. When she gets to the end of the book, she's met my boy Ben Coley. He's I think he was 57 or 58, somewhere in that time frame. So essentially the same age as her dad. They get into a romantic relationship. Look, they about to live happily ever after and all this stuff. Coming to the women on this, I want to hear y'all perspective.
Please.
That is a massive age gap.
Well, that's a child. Let's go to that part.
Yeah. Her frontal ain't even like developed yet.
Yeah. I was just, and it's funny we're talking about this. I just talked to one of my coworkers about when I was growing up, and I graduated from high school in the 90s. There used to be older men that would come to the school to talk to younger girls. It was not like, I mean, if you had a boyfriend that was 30 and you were 17 or 16, that was not abnormal. You just be like, oh, she got an old man. You know, she talking to this dude, he older. It was never like it was never like like now if we saw a 50-something-year-old man trying to talk to a 16-year-old, it's like, this is a pedophile. Like, you know, but they didn't do that then. And she wrote this book back in the 90s where it wasn't, to me, when I was hearing it, I was like, you know what? I just was talking about this. Like, that's the way people were then. It wasn't, it was kind of like a Miss Seeley and Mr. thing, you know, how they were young, you know, and I think it became more like, wait a minute, these girls, even with Aaliyah and R. Kelly, remember that? It was, all of that was happening in the 90s, and it was not like parents were allowing their girls to get married to dudes at 15 and 16. As long as they signed off, they could do it. Because I know 2 girls that did that in high school. So, I mean, that was just, to me, her writing was, it was forward, but it was still in the, you know, in that time frame as well. So.
Yeah, I agree. And just the character herself, she's 15, 18. Now, Lauren is a typical 15 to 18-year-old in the book because she thinks she knows everything. Like, she comes off very like, you have not even lived no life, but she's just like, I know this. Like, she made up her own, I guess, religion because she's like, you know, all this other stuff is false and I know the truth. But when you're 18, like, you think you really do know everything. And I'm like, Lauren, you just haven't lived a little life. So when she gets with a 60-year-old, in her mind, and a lot of young girls' mind, they're like, oh, I'm grown. They think they're grown, but they just really don't know. So that's what, in the book, I was like, and you know, of course, he was like, at first, like, you're a baby, but then he all in after that.
I want to go in on him. Like, come on, Ben Coley.
Go ahead.
Like, you're 60 years old. Like, you know better. Like, your whole position with land, and you talking about, oh, what my sister gonna say when I bring you home? Like, you're a creep. You cringe. What's going on? What's happening?
Pedophile.
All right, so look, let me pull that thread a little bit further. And again, this is women's history. So look, it's only fitting that we had a discussion with the ladies on 4 Friends in the book. So we do know socially it becomes a little more acceptable, you know, as you get older in age to have those larger age gaps in relationships. So obviously here an 18-year-old and a late 50s, early 60-year-old is that's a little bit much. But when is that max age gap, or when does it become acceptable to kind of have a larger age gap in dating or relationships from the female perspective here on Four Friends in the Book?
I feel
You
like me, if it's like large, I think once you hit like 30, to me, like once you get 30, okay, you date somebody that's like 40, old. I could see that, but for me, it's like 30 around that area, because you're more grown. You probably been out of college some years, some live some life and all that kind of stuff. So that's just my opinion for that kind of gap.
So you can be 30 and have a 20-year age gap. That's cool. Or
I mean, I don't know why you would want to, but to me, yeah, to me, I feel like 30, yeah, for me. But I
okay,
wouldn't be 30 dating a 50-year-old, but there are some people that do. So,
yeah.
but I just feel like 30 is a good age for them kind of gaps.
Mhm.
okay.
I agree with
Maria,
her. I think after you turn 40, it's all
Yeah,
it's
after
fair
40
game.
it
and
don't matter no more.
70.
Like, yeah, but going back to get like a 20-year-old at 40, that's that's
That's
that's
weird.
that's weird. But if you're going up, you 40, you want a 60-year-old. I mean, hey, I'm not the person to knock you for it. But like I said, now going back
Yeah, I was about to say,
to a
like,
20-year-old, I think
no,
if
because,
you're 40, I think you can go back to 30. 30 should be
yeah,
your starting point at 40.
35.
And then going up, you can go up as far as you want to. But yeah, I don't think you should
because
go into the 20s at 40.
no, yeah, because I have subbed in high school, and I'm like, I really thought about that. I'm like, how is somebody going back getting somebody 18, 19? Like, ain't no way, because just the mental, like, it's totally different. You can really tell the difference. So,
The mental
yeah, going
capacity.
back, yes.
Mm.
Okay. All right, so kind of back to the book a little bit, and Isaiah kind of touched on it. So Lauren is going through this whole journey. She's trying to find herself with religion. She kind of finding God. Her dad is a Baptist preacher, but she's not really,
Mhm.
I guess, kind of religious in that aspect. She's kind of
Mhm.
finding her own God, her own religion. Earthseed, the book of the living, which is kind of a common theme throughout this book,
I
where she's
see.
kind of capturing her journey,
Mhm.
and again highlighting a lot of the things that are going on in this at that time futuristic period of time from Octavia Butler's perspective of writing this in the 90s, but our current time that we're living today, as far as again some of the joblessness, like economic downturn, people like water being an issue, people like crime, drugs, just so many things that are going on and taking place throughout this book.
Mhm.
Did you guys make any, I guess, connection or even see any comparisons to like today's time as you were kind of reading or listening to this book that really stood out to you, or if you just had a favorite moment overall within this, or something that stood out to you? I'm gonna come to my brother on this one, man. Did you have a moment or just make any connections with what's going on in today's time?
Well, I didn't have a moment because the book fell flat for me. But what I did enjoy was the connection with his family. Like with Lauren, I think her mom had passed away. There's her stepmom that was helping raise her, so they had a blended family. So for me, I thought they was gonna harp her on that. I know she had a sensitivity of she felt what people felt. She was hypersensitive, and I thought that was the sower in the parable. But I was totally lost with what was going on. But other than that family dynamic of how they was raised, I kind of enjoy listening to that story. But the other part, like I had no type of connection with it whatsoever.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
understandable. Kim, Laria, any thoughts on that topic?
Well, yeah, when she talked about the president being elected and then them going into space,
Mm-hmm.
and how, a lot of people thought, why are we going into space and we've got so many people down here that are having so many issues? It sounded like today. And I was like, is this really, I can't believe she wrote that back then. But just the tone of how she talked about the government, it sounded like right now. And I really identified with that. That was one thing that I really enjoyed about her book was how she was kind of forthtelling. It was almost kind of like my boo Malcolm X.
Oh God, don't get her
How
started.
you read his
Look,
book and then it
look,
makes you feel like
look,
it's
4
today.
seasons later, and she's still on it.
I love Malcolm. Oh my God. But anyway, but yeah, it really reminded that was one thing that kind of stood out to me. I was like,
Gotcha.
man, this sounds very familiar in that sense of everything.
Yeah, it was, and Kim kind of pointed to it earlier. It was really kind of weird because she's using like live dates from the future.
Mhm.
So hearing about the presidential election in November 6th of 2024, then taking office in 25, and the president's mission is, hey, I'm about to shake all this stuff up. You know, we got issues in the government. You know,
You don't say.
I'm gonna privatize a lot of this stuff. We're getting rid of stuff. We're making cuts. You know,
Right.
we trying to do all this stuff, and I'm like, man, this is really kind of similar to what we might be, we're going through right now. So I think that premonition, I don't know what even sparked Octavia Butler's mind to, think ahead here in writing this book, but just, and the book has kind of been trending even within, like, I guess, social media and stuff, because it is so closely related to the times that we're in right now. And it's kind of weird. It's kind of strange, even if from the economic perspective, people not being able to have jobs, being fired from jobs, trying to find
Right.
work.
Right.
It was just different. So at
Yeah.
least for me. Kim, thoughts on, I guess, the similarity between the time period of the book and today, or if you just had an overall favorite moment?
I think just overall, because I do like sci-fi kind of like stories and all that kind of stuff, but just the human nature aspect of it, of survival, that was just interesting to me, because I could think, like, if I had to take my family and we had to survive, like the dynamics and like who would be the person that would be kind of dragging us down, who would be making stupid decisions. Like her stepmom was getting on my nerves, the brother was getting on my nerves. I'm like I liked her dad because he was like solid, he was smart, and he, like, you could tell he was gonna survive. But there's a lot of people, I was like, a lot of people I don't think would fare very well if they were in this same position, because it's just, you have to be smart, you have to be adaptable, even just like going out to help people. But because I would want to help people, but then it's like, oh, it might be a trap to get us robbed and all this stuff. So just the aspect of survival and how we would have to adapt and change to that. And like, I imagine myself in that situation. I'd be like, would I survive? Would I try to live in that town, or would I try to go up north? Like, what would I try to do? I found that to be interesting because I try to put myself in their situation a little bit.
Okay.
So I was like, I would try to go north. I would try.
Okay, good. All right, so wasn't our most favorably rated book here on Four Friends in the Book? We had some mixed reviews. I'm the outlier, I guess. I still enjoyed it. Maybe, I had my nerd moment, so maybe I connected on the nerd level here.
I gave it a 6.57.
Okay,
That's pretty
so
good.
me and Kim was kind of in line, and Isaiah and LaRhonda, they was kind of on the other side
I
of
don't
it.
know what y'all read. I'm trying
Me
to,
neither. I'm
you
neither.
know
I'm
what I'm
not trying to
saying?
be
Trying to
negative
go back.
Nancy.
I'm like,
I'm just
well,
being
let's
quiet.
go back and go through this thing.
Maybe I missed that part that they read.
Right. I'm like, y'all really like that?
Okay. So again,
All right.
depending on what type of books you like, you guys
Yeah, that's
may or
true.
may not
That's
like
true.
sci-fi or fiction.
That's
Again, this
true.
is a fiction book, kind of sci-fi fantasy that does have a lot of realism from today's time period. But again, don't go read it, go check it out for yourself. That's
That's
the thing
true.
about being in the book club, being exposed to books that you may or may not
That's true.
normally pick up, and so just getting that exposure, and picking up something that may be outside of your normal. So let's switch gears a little bit. Let's bring it to current day. So again, even in the book, where she's writing in the future, and LaRhonda kind of touched on it, Kim as well, Isaiah. we are seeing some very close similarities with what's going on in today, like in our current state here
Mm-hmm.
in the United States, and honestly, even just in the world, with the economy. Now the tariffs is a hot issue right now.
Right.
Uh, People are being fired and laid off from jobs. Look, the prices of eggs. I mean, look, that alone has become a huge thing, which you saw a lot of that in the book as well, with just kind of the haves and the have-nots, and how people
Right.
were starting to
Mm-hmm.
almost segregate or separate based on kind of their social economic standards. You had a kind of a wealthy class of people that had more resources, uh, kind of the poor class that was, robbing and stealing and committing crimes, and Lauren's family here, they were kind of in the middle, still trying to make it. They weren't wealthy, but they weren't poor, and trying to survive. And so uh, we're seeing similar activities with jobs, housing, economy here in today's time. Just wanted to get you guys' thoughts on the current economy, in the United States, but also in the world. Do you guys think we are like heading to a state where things will be upended, and like we're getting to like a deeper decline with our governance and the economy, and just the lifestyle that we normally live? Or is this kind of a temporary rough patch that we may or may not be going through? Again, a common theme throughout the book, but just wanted to get you guys' thoughts as far as where we currently are now. Are we in an economic downturn? Is this kind of a temporary rough patch? Do you guys foresee it getting worse, better? Just kind of, what are your thoughts on that? I'm gonna come to Miss Lake on that one as well.
Come on, Miss Lake.
Well, um, I do think we are heading into a recession. I feel like the writing's on the wall on that. Just with the prices and low key, I remember like either the beginning of this year or the end of last year, I was like watching documentaries on YouTube, and I watched one on the Great Depression, and like in the documentary said what kicked it off was, I forgot who was the president, but he started putting all these tariffs in place, and like that like was a chain effect to hit the whole economy. So I was like, that sounds very familiar. So I do think we're heading into a
Mm-hmm.
recession. I remember the housing bubble was that 2008, the
Mm-hmm.
housing
Mm-hmm.
crisis, all that stuff. Now, do I
Mm-hmm.
think it's like going to be a complete like just bottoming out like the book and like in America? I don't think it's to that point yet, but I do think we are just going to go through a rough patch, because I just think things have to like level themselves back out. So that's how I feel.
Okay.
Okay, that's good. Look, coming to our local politician, economist, businessman here on Four Friends Book. Love to hear your input, sir. Isaiah, what do you think about our current state of the world economy, and even here in the United States?
So I think our current state is like we dealing with a lot of leaders who are just addicted with this power struggle, self-interest, and this endless political theatrics. And we see it every day, especially if you watch the news. And like around while all these countries are moving forward, they're embracing innovations and economic change, but we look like we're just stuck. And I understand what's going on. Like we like stuck in this cycle. Like if you just read the news or just pick up a paper, you're seeing that this infrastructure is crumbling, the education system is deteriorating. A lot of the economy is just basically suffocated because people don't want to agree across the aisle. Like it's like this person is only doing what this person party's interest, and this person only doing what this party's interest. Like, but this is a country that has been cohesive, and we have like so many different melting pot. And I think we can be better as a nation if we just come together. But I think a lot of these people that are in power just on their self-interest, like they only out for themselves. Like even if you saw the news this week, the White House, the nation's capital, it's turned into a car dealership where they're selling electric cars on the front lawn. I'm like, come on, like, and
Oh, wow.
I think like a company, I mean, like, I'm sorry, like a country without economic growth, it just like it runs into a lot of problems. Unless you were
Mm-hmm.
just born into privilege that gives you access to money, I don't understand where this system comes from. Like, where does money come from? Having a good job. Where does a good job come from? Some type of form of education. What are they trying to take away? the Department of Education. You see how this cycle works? Like shutting down the Department of Education, just like attack on the most vulnerable people, especially black folks and people of color. I think this economy is just basically fighting to scrape away the middle class. Like either you're going to be this super rich person or this person that can't even afford eggs. Like and it's not even like integrity. Like at this point, I don't know what these people are doing. Like it's just crazy. Like if you just sit back and watch, it's just tough. Whew.
Yeah, yeah. I hadn't heard about the cars thing.
Oh
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't see it?
Yeah, they was
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been overstimulated with the news, to be honest, man. It's become too much for your boy. So I've been kind of
I can understand why.
yeah.
and I was flipping through and I'm like, why are they cars on the front lawn of the White House?
Yeah.
And they really
Yeah.
selling cars to boost the I'm like, come on. Like,
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Laria, thoughts and opinions on just our current state of of being here in the United States? Do you feel like this is just a rough patch, a temporary time period, or do you see it getting worse, better? Like, what are your thoughts and opinions on that?
Well, I think only time will tell at this point because I feel
mm,
like everybody's just allowing a little kid to just scream and run through the house and just throw temper tantrums and do whatever they want to do. And then
mhm,
at some point, it's kind of like, okay, we got to stop the child. So how far and how much damage is going to happen before we get
right.
there is where I think. So, and it's all about greed,
Mhm,
it and power. It's not even about anything else. Is kind of like, let's just let the people who had the money keep getting the money,
right.
privatize a lot of things, and give them all of this. And let's make these people, they don't have it. So, and they're never going to have it. And we're not going to allow them to have it.
Correct.
So, um, in that sense, I believe it related to the book. I don't know if it'll go to that extent at this
Mm,
time, but yeah, we definitely have a lot of wickedness in high places. So
Yeah.
it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. But yeah, I'm
wickedness
kind
in
of
high
like Isaiah on
places.
that.
I
Yeah.
like that. I like that.
Yeah. And I think the weird thing is like it's always been there. Like there's always been this power
Mhm.
struggle.
Mhm. Yes.
But there seems to be a certain level of like even in that there was some discretion and even a certain bit of dignity in it. Like, you
Mhm.
now it's just become to the point where it's like there's no mercy. Like I want
Mhm. That's true.
power, I want wealth, I want everything, and I don't care who have to step on, who have to, you
Mhm.
know, do
Mhm.
whatever to get it, which is the very sad part that I feel like we're seeing now. I don't even have a problem with things changing and trying to be more efficient and effective.
Of
Mhm.
course.
I do have an issue when we try to do so much at once and we're stressing our economy, we're stressing our
Right.
standards, stressing our people,
Mhm.
economically with jobs and like just the cost of living, housing, buying cars, like buying these eggs, food, and everything else, compounded with everything else that's going on. Like you just it's unstable, and I think that's kind of what we saw in the book as well. Now that may be like a far fetched, activity
Mhm.
or reach in that regard, but things being destabilized rapidly leads to stuff just going horribly wrong. And it's still very surreal for me. Like I thought like the COVID years was just bad and like it's just okay, we getting better.
Mhm.
And I feel like even now we're still living in these moments of history where it's still so very surreal and you like I just don't know. We don't know what's next, and that's like it can be very scary. So I think that's kind of the thing for me. I don't know if this is a rough patch. I hope it is. I hope it's temporary. I hope it gets better. I hope we preparing ourselves for the best we can for whatever may be coming. But
Mhm.
there's just
Whew.
so much uncertainty.
Yes.
I think that's the scary part right now. So look, had a great discussion about look the parable of the sower by Miss Octavia Butler. Look,
Mhm.
Rest in peace. She was with us from 1947 to 2006. She left us this book and the Parable of the Talent. So again,
Okay.
if you guys are into kind of the fiction sci-fi genre, check those out. I also had a great discussion just even about the current state of the economy here in the United States and the US. Uh, if we are, about to be in a recession, do we think it's kind of a temporary issue or if it's potentially getting worse? So
Right.
great discussion here on Four Friends in the Book. I definitely appreciate you guys' input and thoughts behind these books and these topics that we talk about here. All right. So it's time. You know what time it is. It's our favorite segment of the show, which we entitle The Rant. Coming from none other than my brother Isaiah Tukes, Mr. Rant Man himself, where we give him 60 seconds to kind of speak from the heart, whatever's on his mind, whatever he may be feeling. We just speaks freely. We don't debate it. We don't contest it. We don't even, combat what he's saying. He just speaks from the heart about whatever may be on his mind for this period of time. So, my brother, the floor is yours once again. 60 seconds starting now. Go.
In honor of Women's History Month, let's highlight LaRhonda Patrick, a game-changing leader who represents progress. As the 16th mayor of her city in Middle Georgia, she shattered barriers by becoming the first elected Black mayor, the first female mayor, the first minority mayor, and the youngest in its history. Mayor Patrick's journey is a testament to her hard work. With a background in political science from Georgia State University and a Juris Doctorate from North Carolina Central University, she built a successful legal career in both corporate law and private practice, later serving as a city attorney. Her experience as a military brat instilled a deep respect for service members and veterans, while a value she carries into her leadership. Running on a platform of transparency and community with the slogan, "Our City, Our Future," she has delivered on her promises. Under her guidance, the city has witnessed the opening of a 90-day homeless shelter, a Vietnam Veterans Memorial, and she's been instrumental in energizing the downtown area. Mayor Patrick is an example of what can be achieved through vision and commitment. Her story is an inspiration reminding us of the power and impact women have in shaping a brighter future. And that's that on that.
That's
Yay.
good. That's good. That's a good closeout for Women
That
History
was
Month. Look,
good.
Yes.
shout out to our mayor, Mayor LaRhonda Patrick, Mayor of Warner Robins, Georgia. She's doing great things here in the city, and she is up for re-election. So look, we
Mhm.
definitely support and endorse her here on Four Friends in the
Friends and a
Book
book.
podcast. All right, so look, just wrapped up the book, The Parable of the Sower by Miss Octavia Butler. Had a great discussion about economy, what may or
Mhm.
may not be going on here in the US with just these jobs, these eggs, these food, yeah, everything. And my brother just celebrated Women's History Month by honoring Mayor LaRhonda Patrick as well. So Isaiah, tell them what we have coming up for next month here on Four Friends of the Book.
Okay, guys, before we let you go, we want to let you know the book for next month. We're going to be reading Get Honest or Die Trying by Charlemagne the God. This is his third book, and it is the first time that we're going to have it on Four Friends in a Book. L'Real, please let the viewers know when they can tune in.
You guys can tune in every third Thursday of the month. We'll be right here to give you another review. I hope that you come and join us for that. 'Cause we have some good
Please,
stuff. Yeah.
please.
Yes. And if you are on social media, make sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. If you're watching on YouTube, like this video right now and subscribe to our channel. And we are available on all your favorite streaming platforms. So go there and leave us a review of how you enjoyed the show as well.
Mm-hmm.
And as always, let's continue to read, let's learn, let's grow, and let's have a discussion right here on Four Friends in a Book. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.